What's that sound? It's For Amusement Only, the EM and Bingo Pinball Podcast. Well, welcome back to For Amusement Only. This is Nick Baldridge, and with me is my return guest, Phil Bogema. Phil, how are you doing?
I'm good, Nick. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Good. Nice to talk to you again.
Same here. And Phil, I understand you've had a lot going on since last time we talked.
Yeah, I think I talked to you in June, and when we had that conversation, I think you asked me whether I was looking for any more games at that point. Mm-hmm. And I said, no, I was, trying to get the ones that I had all fixed up and decide what to do with them. And it turned out that in August, I'd been looking for a Sweet Shawnee or some kind of a flasher game by Keeney that I wanted to add to my collection here. And I saw one on Craigslist, so I called the guy, and I went over and looked at it. He had a kind of a little storage unit there. And I told him that, I really was just kind of like a novelty for me, and I was really into the bingos more than anything. And I said, if you come across any bingo machines, let me know, because I know how hard they are to find around here. Well, about a week later, the guy called me and said that he had found a guy out in eastern Colorado that had a pile of these things in a barn, and they'd been sitting there 35 years, I think.
Wow.
And I said, boy, that's, just what I need. So, but, you can't turn them down. And what happened is, apparently this fellow, his father had operated these machines all over the eastern plains. And I don't know, from the East Coast, if you've never been to Colorado, it's split into two, kind of right down the middle. The mountains start in the middle of the state. A lot of Colorado is just farmland and flat. And that's where these games were running, and the VFWs and things like that out there a long time ago. And so it turns out that the fellow that was running them has passed away, and his two sons, and their granddaughter didn't know what to do with the games. And they didn't want to just get rid of them because they were, belonged to their dad, and it was kind of important to them. So as it turned out, they found out that what I was doing with these things and how much I love these games. And so they said, well, we want you to take the games if you want the games. So I got a truck and two other guys, and we drove out there, and it was about 100 miles one way. And loaded them up. We loaded them a 25-foot truck, a pickup truck, and an SUV full of these things. I mean, it was completely full.
Wow.
I think I heard about your little escapade out there at the York show, and you had some issue in your truck there because something fell, or yes. I don't know. There was no way anything was going to fall over in this truck because they were jammed in there completely. There was nowhere for anything to move. And we went out there, and I walked into this barn. It was basically a metal shed where they had tractors and farm equipment. And on the left side, there were probably 6 machines set up. On the right side, there was probably 12 more that were stacked. And they were dirty, filthy dirty. And then they had flasher machines. I don't know if you know what I mean by those, but they're just kind of like slot machines with replay meters. That's all they are.
Okay.
And he said, well, the deal was, he said, I want you to come, but I don't want you to take, just pick and choose, because this guy didn't want to deal with it. Mm-hmm. And I said, okay, I'll take everything. except the flashers. I mean, I was interested in the bingos. So we went and I looked and I said, oh my God, how am I going to get all this in there? Because it was more than what they told me.
Oh, wow.
But somehow we managed to fit it all in, and the truck was leaning a little bit on the way back. I was driving behind the guy, and like, Jesus Christ, I hope the whole thing doesn't tip over, but we made it back in one day, and I went and we went to a relative's house of mine who has a really large storage area at his house, and unloaded all these games, and we did it all in one day, and we kind of just threw them in there, and since then I've been organizing and trying to figure out what I have, what's worth saving, what's worth, what I should part out, and frankly, I want the people out around this part of the area to know that, there's some capability they might be able to pick up some of these games, because I don't have time to go through all of them, but anybody that decides to do this needs to know that they're really rough, so they probably need to know what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's where it is.
So what did you get?
Well, they're all 1950s games, but the turning corners and stuff, I've got, let's see, I have, I think, a couple Sun Valleys, 3 Key Wests, I think there's 4 Showtime games, 2 Beach Times, a Carnival Queen, Touchdown, 2 Miss America 57s, and a Parade. So that's what was there.
Wow.
And then there's a Surf Club cabinet, and I wish there would have been a Surf Club head, because I like that game, but I don't know what happened to that. And also a Showtime head that's all kind of beat up, but used for parts. And there's about 16 back glasses, too. Some of them are in okay shape. Some of them are kind of rough, but I think they'd be usable for people. I didn't even inventory those. I think there's a couple Beach Times, and there's a good roller derby, but, things like that. So okay. It was amazing. I mean, I told you about this right when it came up, and I didn't believe it was real.
Yeah.
Well, you get to be a little skeptical about these things after you get to be my age, and it sounded like I had just met the guy, and I thought, nah, this can't be right, but sure enough, so.
I think it's healthy to be skeptical.
Yeah, absolutely. But it turned out that the fellow that I ended up buying that Sweet Shawnee, and he's a really nice guy. He's a dealer out here. He's been doing it for about 40 years, and I've talked to him about 20 years ago, but I hadn't had any more contact with him since then, and so it was kind of interesting to know that he was still here, for one thing, and that there were actually bingos that I could go drive and pick up. So
yeah,
that's
a pretty cool story. A rare.
It is.
Kind of warehouse.
I hear about things like this, but I've never actually done it myself.
Well, there you go.
And the neat thing about it is, nobody got to see the games before, so you don't know what you're going to get.
Right.
You don't know. I didn't know when I was driving out there if I was going to end up with just piles of junk that I'd have to drive right to the dump.
Right.
You just don't know.
Yeah.
So and they were pretty dirty. I mean, 35 years of dirt in these things.
Mm-hmm.
But he had a master key to open all the front doors.
Huh.
And so that made it good, and they were all pretty much locked. We got a few little rodent issues, I think, but they'd been there some time ago and probably had camps or something, but I cleaned all that stuff out. Everything's pretty clean now.
Oh, so, good.
Yeah, I just took a shop vac over there, and it was reassessing what to do with these things. Now, some of them are actually really amazingly clean inside for as long as they've been sitting.
Mm-hmm.
The the touchdown is really nice. The parade looks great. And Miss America, there's a Miss America that's good. The Carnival Queen looks good. There's a Beach Time that looks pretty good. And maybe a Key West, I don't know. But I think that probably of these games, maybe 4 of them are parts machines. If you want to put the time in, you could probably save the rest of them.
Wow.
And I want to, I either want to do it myself or have somebody else have an opportunity to do this, because I think for one thing, it's important to these people that I owe them this, and I want to make sure that happens. When I get one of these working, just mechanically, I think I'll bring it back up there, and the guy would be interested in doing that, just putting it in his house. I think it would be good for him.
Cool.
Yeah. But I won't go through the complete restoration or anything like that.
Yeah.
You saw some of the stuff I do there. It takes a long time to do that.
I did, and I've got to tell you, I am very, very impressed.
I have a lot of patience. I never posted very many of those photos, or never really talked about it much, but I do enjoy doing that. I showed you a picture of that Miss America 57 I restored in Aledo, and you saw the silver sails. That the cabinet on that thing was beat when I got it.
That was very impressive, yes.
That was the first one that I really tried to restore. What happened, you finally met John Robinette at the show I saw, huh?
Yeah, that was great.
Yeah, well, I found that back glass. I wasn't restoring that game because the back glass was broken. I couldn't find one, but I did, and he sent me the glass, and at that point I got motivated, and that was the beginning of this whole process for me to try to learn how to make them look good. Mm-hmm. So if they look good, and then my wife doesn't care if they come in the house or not. So that's kind of it.
Well, Phil, do you mind if I post a couple of those pictures with this interview?
No, I'd be happy. I'd be happy if you did that.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm sure people will love to see that, because I've got to tell everybody who's listening that Phil has some phenomenal skills here. I've seen some stuff come back from the dead, and I've certainly brought some stuff back from the dead, but cosmetically, these are incredible transformations. So.
Yeah, the worse off it is, the more of a challenge it is to me.
Well, that's true.
Yeah.
Not all are up to the task, though.
Yeah, you go ahead and put that on there. It's pretty amazing. So
it is.
And now I'm doing I'm finally getting around to this bikini. Steve Smith sent me some photos of his machine. Mm-hmm. And because the one that I have, everything's gone. The original artwork's not there, and so I needed a prototype or something so I could go into Photoshop and do all this. And so I've got all the stencils, and in fact, I've been painting that one now. So hopefully, I'll be done with that in a month or so if it doesn't get too cold here.
So here's my question for you, because I think one of the photos you sent was the before on that one. Is that right? It was in the background, I think.
Did you see that? It had like that weird stripes on there. I don't know what they did.
Just something to be different.
Yeah.
Well, so you had pictures of Steve's machine, and then you put them into Photoshop and got them sized appropriately and so forth.
Yeah. What I do is you got to get the perspective right, and everything on the internet. I was going to have to skew it and do all these things, and so I asked Steve to help me out, and he was really nice and sent me photos very quickly, as straight on as he could. Mm-hmm. And then I kind of looked at some of the other stuff on the internet, put it all together, and then what I do is I make a Photoshop with layers. Mm-hmm. So you have the different colors, and then another layer for the tracings of the colors. And the size of the thing is the exact size of the cabinet or the head or whatever. Once you do that, then you can say you want the white trace layer, you isolate that, and then I'll put grid lines in there so I know exactly when I cut it where properly in the right place. And then what you got to do is save it into a PDF file and go into a PDF printer and print them as tiled, and you can get it exactly the right size to scale, and you piece the stuff together, and then I just cut it that way. So I think it looks pretty good. It's a very time-consuming process.
So you actually piece it together from 8.5 by 11 sheets?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. My gosh, Phil.
Yeah. Well, it turns out, like for a cabinet side, it's about 10 sheets of paper. And it really isn't that hard to do. You just print them out, and you got to make sure you overlay them right. So I put grid lines in, and always a certain space apart, so that I know that 8 or 10 inches apart. So I take a ruler and I make sure that I'm laying everything out exactly right, and it turns out pretty good.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well,
and then I don't know. Have you ever sprayed a machine?
I've helped Steve spray some, so that's as close as I've gotten.
Well, the question that I have is how other people are doing this in terms of maintaining the stencil so there's not too much spray that, underspray, is that what they call it? I don't know.
Yeah.
Sometimes those things lift up, and so I've got a way that I've done that. There's two ways that I've done that. I used to, well, first you try that tack spray. That doesn't work because it doesn't leave any of it doesn't look like it's from the factory when you're done with it.
Mm-hmm.
It's too clean.
Right.
So what I was doing for a while was just taking like a paper punch and putting holes onto the stencil itself, because I use poster board,
mm-hmm.
and then taking this painter's tape, and you can lay the tape right over all those punch holes right along the edge of the stencil, and you'll get a very small lift, but it'll keep the thing tight, and it really turns out well. But what I'm doing now is I'm just trying to use double-sided tape and put it all the way around the edges. So, because there's nothing I hate worse than spending a lot of time doing this and then having something go wrong and the underspray's too much and you got to fix it.
Right.
So I'd be interested to hear what other people's solutions are for that, because I've always sort of struggled with it, and it's taken me a lot of time.
Well, I've seen what Steve does, like I said, and I've helped him with that, and he uses poster board as well.
Uh-huh.
And he just weights it down. Not so much that it can't move at all, especially in the areas where you're spraying directly, but that prevents it from lifting so much that the underspray gets, or overspray gets to be crazy.
Yeah. I tried that, and it didn't really, I don't know, maybe I did it wrong, but, I tried putting rocks and bricks and all kinds of
mm-hmm.
junk.
That's basically it.
I couldn't get the desired result, but maybe I don't know. Anyway, this is the thing that works best for me, but it takes forever.
Yeah, it sounds like it does. But the end result is pretty amazing. So, can I impose on you to send me finished pictures of the bikini when you're done?
Oh, sure, absolutely. I'd be glad to. I don't know how long it'll take, but as I told you, I gotta retire at some point. But until I do that, I don't have a lot of time to work on everything. So I'm busy half the time. I got family obligations and a job that keeps me pretty busy. So
you're saying you're not in bingo mode 24/7, huh?
No, I can't be. I mean, I'd like to be. Actually, I think I'm getting. Well, this is sort of a rebound for me, because I was really involved with it, from late '90s into about 2006 or 7.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had just all kinds of stuff come up, and I sort of shelved it for a while. But now I'm back, and I just love this. It's just so interesting, and you need a hobby. Everybody needs a hobby, and everybody needs something that'll keep them occupied and busy and thinking. Mm-hmm. And I'm glad I have that.
Yeah, and it's definitely a fun one. So
yeah,
it's nice to start out with something terrible and then end up with something great.
Well, it really is, because I tell you, I'm an accountant. So what? I never do anything. You know, I mean, I take a piece of paper and I move it from one side of the desk to the other, or I pay some taxes, or do, you know, you never see the end result. It never ends. Mm-hmm. It's just. So this is the one thing that I can do where after I'm finished with it, I can see the end result and say, you know, well, I think I did a good job, or I could have done this better. I mean, there are some paint jobs that I've done initially. I did a Showtime quite a long time ago, and I thought it was pretty good when I did it, and then I looked at it later, and I thought, geez, I really didn't know what I was doing.
Well, you know, it takes time to build up your repertoire of skills. So.
Well, it does, and I mean, I still am not, like Steve. I know he's a woodworker, and I don't know how to do any of that.
I don't either.
No, I mean, I know how to maybe sand a piece of wood. I can put some poly on there, but in terms of like fabricating anything like that, that's amazing to me that he can do that, or anyone can do that for that matter.
Same here.
So, and I don't know how much time I want to spend on these games in terms of cosmetics, but if I decide to keep, a few of them, I don't have a lot of room. I probably have room for 6 games downstairs, and I got a big basement, but I've got all kinds of stuff down there now, big TVs and bars and stuff like that, so it's pretty neat. But at one point I had, 30 plus games down there, and there's just no room for that anymore. So I'm going to have to figure out something to do with these, and if anybody is interested, they can get in touch with me. I don't know if there's any bingo collectors around Denver that would even want them.
Well, it's worth a shot. So,
yeah, well, maybe somebody's listening, and you can give them my email address if you. I'd rather not put it out over the air, but
okay.
If you get somebody that would be interested, you can have them email me.
Okay.
Yeah. So the other, the thing is that it's just hard to assess. I mean, I haven't even plugged these in yet.
Right.
Although I can tell you that I looked inside these games, and I know that they took good care of these games. You can tell when you can. I mean, for instance, I saw the extra step unit, and it wasn't disconnected.
Oh. Huh.
So I actually told these people, I said, your dad was a fair guy. He didn't, and I showed him what I meant by that, and how he, and I thought that was very rare. You hardly ever see that. So that was my first clue.
Yeah.
And I found in the cabinets some schematics, some manuals. I found mouse nests that had previously been schematics.
That's what I normally find.
But that's what happens, I mean, my God, they're in a barn in eastern Colorado. Oh, my God. This ranch that I went to, we drove, 10 miles off the freeway and then 10 miles out on a dirt road.
Oh, good.
And we went to this place, and it was a 30,000 acre ranch. So it's I think that's about 44 square miles. So these people I have a feeling that the guy made quite a bit of money running these things at some point in time, because that's a lot of land. And I mean, even in Colorado in the Eastern Plains, that's a big ranch.
Yeah.
So
a lot of space for bingos.
Yeah, but it was interesting because, I would have never had a reason to go out there at all. So
there you go.
It was fun, and it was really an adventure. So I've got that going for me, and my wife is sort of, I don't know, she's all right with it, I think. But she just thinks I'm nuts. But then I told her, I let you know this. This fella, he sort of was dropping hints around that he knows where a big, huge stash of these bingos are in a heated warehouse up north. And he said there's about 100 of them, and they've been, inside in a climate-controlled warehouse for years and years and years. But he told me the fellow that owns them has all the money he needs, and he's too lazy to do anything with them.
Okay.
So I think maybe a year or two down the road, you might be hearing something about that at least.
I was going to say, do you have the truck warmed up already?
Not yet.
Well, good.
But, you never know.
Hey, it's one thing always leads to another.
Yeah, it does.
With hobbies, and it's pretty great.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, I was dead serious when I told you I wasn't looking for any more games when I talked to you last time. But I can't stand to see these things just. It just kills me. It's like a baby or something. You don't want it to be misused.
Right.
And they're not making them anymore, so you just don't want that to happen.
Yep.
And so anyway, that's it.
So, do you have anything going on aside from the bikini with your own collection, as far as stuff you're working on, or stuff you're thinking about working on, or anything?
Well, I got a little bit of mechanical work to do on the Gaytime.
Mm-hmm.
That's almost finished, but I've got a little problem with the numbers, the holes jumping. I don't know. I haven't had time to really look at it yet, but it'll work at the end of the game, but it doesn't work during the game, so that shouldn't be a big deal.
No, that sounds like you'll have that fixed in about 5 seconds.
Yeah, it shouldn't take very long.
Yeah.
And then there's one other little issue with that. I'm kind of looking forward to that because that's a very nice-looking game. I got that from a guy here in Denver, a long time ago. As I said, a lot of these games, I pick them up and then I don't do anything with them for a long time. Mm-hmm. But that's okay with me because it's like if I work on all of them and I get them all done, then I don't have anything to do.
Yeah.
So I just take my time, and I might be a little bit ADD, I'm not sure, because I skip around, I'll do something, and then I'll go on to something else, then I'll come back, and after the bikini's done, then I'm going to do the bounty.
Mm-hmm.
So that'll be the next cosmetic machine. I got the NOS back glass for that, and I've got some really nice stuff. I found a bunch of NOS stuff out in the Northwest last month, and I picked up a pile of the Magic Screen cards, the 9, 1, 2, 11, a bunch of those NOS. They were still in the cardboard. And shooter housings. I've got some instruction cards. I think it's the little ones that say, hold R button down until all balls dump. I think that's what it is. I've got about 15 of those NOS, so I'll never use all those, I don't think. If anybody needs one, let me know. I can't even remember. I always try to buy the stuff NOS if I can find it. I mean, I even have about 200 of these clutches that have never been in a game. So I can't turn it down,
Yeah.
I've got a weakness.
Keep picking up games. I'm sure you'll use them.
Well, that's, of course. That's the idea. I can't, it's sort of a vicious circle, right?
Yeah.
I get the parts, and I need the games, and I get the games, and I need more parts.
Yep.
So, but that's okay. But my concern is that I need to find a good home for these because I can't keep all of them.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not looking to make, I'd like to recover in the end at least the cost that I have on. And it wasn't a lot, believe me. But I had to buy a truck and pay for labor and that kind of thing to get them here. That's all.
Right.
Yeah. So.
Well, it sounds like somebody can get a deal on some fixer-uppers. And,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Some good titles, too.
Yeah.
I mean, Sun Valley, that's a fantastic game.
You know what? And that's cool because I've never played one of those.
Ooh, Phil. That's a really good game.
Yeah, and I looked at that thing and I'm like, this looks like it's great. So I'm kind of looking forward to that too. And by the way, there's an extra Sun Valley back glass. That's another one because one of these glasses was kind of rough. But then I looked in his stash and there's another glass I could put in it. So that's pretty. Yeah. So that's pretty cool.
I mean, that's serendipity there.
Yeah. So, but that's the thing, and I mean, all of this work in bringing these machines back to life, part of it is, you got to have a good glass or something that looks like a glass at the very least.
Right.
Or, it's worthless. You can't. It doesn't matter if it comes back mechanically. If you don't have a back glass or something, it's never going to be worth anything.
Plus, you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah, well, so I've been trying to, determine, again, I'm going to ask a question that maybe somebody can answer, how people are recreating these glasses, because I've tried a lot of different things, and I'm actually meeting with a printer here in the near future to try to get these things printed directly onto plexi to see what they look like, because I have the digitized images that I do.
Mm-hmm.
But, I don't know what other people are doing there. I mean, I know that you can go on the, internet and see that people are selling these things, but I'm not quite sure exactly what they look like or how they are. And I don't want to sandwich these things between glass. That's not working for me.
Gotcha. What's the issue that you have with the glass sandwich?
Well, for one thing, you got the pieces of glass that you have to buy are so thin
mm-hmm.
to make that work that they're very, very fragile.
Yes.
And then to line everything up and to get, the mask precisely where it needs to be. I mean, it took me forever to do this on the one that I did.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, it looks okay, but I'd rather just, find a way to get it on the back of the glass itself.
Right.
And I just don't know how to do that yet. So I read a book. There was a little thing I bought by Arcade Graphics. I think they're out of business now. Mm-hmm. But they used to do these things, and so there's a lot of advice in that book. And it's a little bit old now. But the problem is I'm not a printer, so I don't understand half of what he was talking about. He's different types of material they were using. And so I'm going to bring that with me when I meet these people. And I want an economic solution, mm-hmm. but something that, looks good. I don't want to be cheap.
Right.
Just for the sake of it,
Yeah, well...
I'd rather spend some money and get something that looks good.
It's incredibly cosmetically important to have a nice back glass, so...
Yeah.
I can tell you what I've done, because I've experimented a lot. And
okay.
And I wound up using something sandwiched between two pieces of glass. But what I did... I experimented with all these different materials, and I was working with a printer that was really happy to work with me to find something to do. They liked the challenge. So
mm-hmm. That's good.
It was really good. So what I wound up with, because I have one of those Crystade repros for my bounty.
Okay.
And he did great work, getting everything lined up and so forth, but it comes in two pieces. So you have to cut out, of course, the bingo card from 2 different pieces and then line everything up and make sure it doesn't move. It's exactly the problem you were talking about with the masking layer.
Right.
So what I ended up doing was having a multi-layered file and having them print it directly onto vinyl.
Okay.
And the vinyl that they used diffuses light properly. It doesn't look really nasty or have weird spots in it or anything when it's backlit.
Mm-hmm.
And the masking works perfectly. So the masking has to be black, but other than that, it's great. And it's one piece. So you put it behind the glass, you make sure that the printer cuts it to size because they have, really nice, sharp, good tools for doing that.
Sure.
And you put it between the glass and you can caulk the glass to seal it. And then you have a single piece. And it's not super duper fragile. I mean, you still don't want to be dropping it or throwing it around, but it should last in a machine for a very, very long time.
Yeah, well, that's what I noticed. I mean, when you put the sheets together, it seems like it's okay, but by themselves, they're too thin. So.
Yes, well, and especially for a bingo where they're super tall,
Right.
That's a big piece of glass.
Yeah, well, anyway, we'll see. There'll be a solution. I don't understand how these people, I guess do they still silk screen? Does anybody do that anymore, or is it all with printers nowadays? Do you know?
There are a few print shops that do silk screening on glass specifically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it's very, very, very expensive. You have to do a run, large enough basically to justify the cost and be able to sell them, because otherwise it's just completely uneconomical for a single glass. But it's almost a lost art. And another thing that's an issue is with these games, the mirroring that they used.
Right.
That's no longer available. That was outlawed.
Yeah, why? I've heard you mention that before. Mm-hmm. Is that true?
Yes.
Why?
The chemical that they used apparently, could get into the water table or something. I don't know what the reason was, but they're not allowed to use that anymore, and so there are alternative formulas, but they're also incredibly expensive. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I guess, almost every repro I've ever seen, it doesn't have that anyway, and it doesn't really bother me too much. I mean, some people are really picky about it, but to me, if the artwork is good, and the colors are good, and, the light's coming through in the right place, and I guess an original is always better than a repro, but that doesn't really bug me too much. I think there's a fellow over there in Belgium or something that's doing it, and he's got some kind of a method he's putting the mirroring on there. Have you seen that?
Yes, and I've looked hungrily for more information on that because, I would love to know what he's doing and what chemical he's using specifically because, if I could work with a printer here to do that, then that would help a lot. But
yeah. So
there's one shop in my town that will do silk screening on glass. And it wouldn't surprise me if there was one in Colorado there.
Yeah, I think this guy that I'm going to go talk to will do it. But I guess my question was, you see people they're going to do a run, and I can't even think because a lot of these guys are doing flipper runs and things like that, and as you know, I'm not much of a flipper player. Mm-hmm. But I was wondering if those runs were done silk screened.
Yes.
Still, they are.
I have a repro Papa card back glass in my game.
Okay.
It's silk screened and it's gorgeous.
Huh.
It's good. Yeah.
Well, I'll figure it out. Anyway, the bikini glass that I have is actually the one that is a print. Mm-hmm. I have the original, but I needed a new one, and so this is what I've done. But I'm always looking for a better alternative, and so I'll see what happens.
Yeah.
If it works out, I'll let you know.
Yeah, please do. I'm always looking for new techniques because
sure. Yeah.
As you know, that's the hardest thing. Getting a
Right.
good glass.
Right.
But yeah, if all else fails, if they're willing to experiment, have them try on a single sheet of vinyl, and just see what you think about that.
Okay.
Because I think it looks pretty good.
Okay, good. I'll try it. So, all right. Well, Nick, I don't know how much time I have now, but I sure hope that this will help somebody, or maybe somebody will be interested, and I'd be willing to, put a little time into these things and get them at least to the point where they're not basket cases.
Right.
I know how it is. I think people are, thanks to you and all of the publicity of the show's getting here, I think a lot of people are finding out about these machines and what great machines they are.
Mm-hmm.
I just think that a lot of people were just making fun of bingos for a long time, like who in the heck would want to play them, or what's the point behind them? And I think finally people are trying to figure this out now, thanks to what you're doing here. But I do think that there's still people that are just afraid to work on these things.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
And frankly, it is a little bit intimidating when you open up the back of one of these machines the first time and you've never looked inside,
mm-hmm.
and especially if you haven't played a game, so you don't know what it's supposed to do,
mm-hmm.
and so you don't know if what it's doing is right or not.
Right.
And that's the advantage you have if you buy from somebody that knows what they're doing instead of just some widow that has one sitting in her basement. You can get a little education, and that's a good way to start.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I would be happy to help anybody with if they're willing to, if they want to take the plunge, so to speak.
I have a feeling that you'll have some takers.
Maybe. I hope so. I really do, because I just think these are fantastic games, and the thought process that went into the whole thing, and I feel like us older guys that played these things when they were on location basically are, we're either degenerate gamblers or, maybe we are just all degenerate gamblers. I'm not sure. I mean, you didn't start playing these things because you were a Boy Scout,
Right.
But once you learn the nuances of these things and you start to play and learn and get into the techniques, and it's just so fascinating, fascinating. So
absolutely.
Yep.
It's one of those things, you do have to keep trying, though. I mean,
right.
You're not going to get it on your first game.
No.
You're not going to have the big hit.
No. Well, yeah, I bought a bright lights from a guy, and he told me that it was broken because the motor kept running.
Okay.
So I said, oh, well, okay. So I restored that one, too. Maybe I'll send you some photos of that one. It looked fantastic when I was done with it. It looked brand new.
Wow.
So I guess I didn't have enough to do. Now I'm... Hey, I was wanted to ask you while you're on the phone, have you been over to that Roanoke Museum yet?
Not yet, believe it or not. It's several hours away from me, but they have a Dixieland there.
Oh, do they?
Yeah.
Oh, that would be... See, I have a friend that I grew up with. I've known him since I was 7.
Mm-hmm.
And he lives in Roanoke. And he's my oldest friend. And I actually was in Roanoke about 2 years ago to go visit him. And I'd love to go back. And, of course, then I'd have to go visit the Pinball Museum while I'm there.
Oh, yeah.
So, But they don't pay off on the Dixieland, right?
No, and I'm not...
Too bad.
I'm not certain if they have it working yet. I've been talking to the technician there a little bit.
Oh, is that right? Okay. Okay. Well, are you helping him get through it?
I have been. I haven't talked with him for a few weeks, so I should reach out and see where he's at.
Yeah. Good. So, and then it turned out that I think I might just get out to Richmond at some point.
I think you should.
Well, these people that used to live right next door to us here moved, and my wife is really good friends with her, and she said, well, maybe, I heard her talking, and she said, maybe we'll get out to Virginia, and I said, where do they live? And she goes, in Richmond. And I said, I think I could do that.
You know a couple people who are here.
Yeah, I'd love to do that. I wish I could have gone to the show. I just hear everybody talking about how good that York show was, and I wish I would have been there. And there was just no way I could get there this year, and got some family issues going on, and I hope to make it. But you going to do another bingo row, or is that it?
I'm going to try to keep it going here.
You're going to go? Good.
I'm probably not going to bring 6 this year, but but I'll bring a few, and I'm trying to talk other people into bringing some. And
good. I hope so. It sounded like it was a really good time.
It was amazing. It was really great.
Yeah. Well, they have the show out here, but I suppose I'm going to have to. I really should bring a bingo or two to the show. I've never seen one here out in Denver at all. The Rocky Mountain Pinball Show. You ever been out here?
No, I have not.
Yeah, you really should take a trip out here sometime.
Well, if you make it all the way to Richmond,
okay,
I'll probably work something out eventually.
Oh, there you go. Okay, we can meet in the middle of Des Moines or something.
There we go. Yeah. Big bingo country there.
My brother used to be a professor at Drake University, but he moved from Drake to Northwestern. He was teaching at Northwestern, and that was in the early 70s in Chicago. And you had to, it was some kind of a weird law because pinballs really weren't even legal there then, as I understand it. But if you joined a club, and he was in this pinball club, and he'd go play flipper pinball. He didn't know what he was doing. He wasn't a bingo player. I kept trying to get him interested in it, and he just didn't want to do it. But I thought that was kind of interesting that they make all the machines up in Chicago and they were illegal.
Well, you gotta make life interesting and challenging. So.
Well, you do. I mean, it's really nonsensical, some of the stuff that goes on with the laws, and the problem. Well, I guess the bingos probably didn't contribute to anything that would make them want to legalize them right away. I mean, everybody was so uptight about the one ball machines and everything that happened in the 30s and 40s. Mm-hmm. And then I don't know if you probably covered this on the show before, but the bingos were a way of getting around the law because they outlawed the one balls.
Right.
And so all of those horse race type games, Citation and Sunshine Park, and I guess, Turf Champ, they were precursors to the bingos, but when they outlawed the one balls, then they came up with this idea that they could use 5 balls instead, and that worked for a while, I guess, until they caught on to it, but everything comes to an end, and that didn't give pinball a good reputation. I mean, from what I understand, the stuff that was going on in the 30s and 40s almost killed the whole thing because the operators were getting really greedy and charging, like a quarter to shoot one ball in 1938.
Whoa, really?
Yeah, and that would probably get law enforcement on you.
I would imagine.
Yeah, and people were, well, anyway. So it had a kind of a shady reputation. And of course the flipper came along in 47, but the people still weren't differentiating. And then the bingos came along in 51, and they looked just like a flipper machine.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I think that if you look, it just makes me laugh every time I see those bingo games with flippers. Have you seen those?
Yeah.
Yeah, they just skirt the law, and it's like, geez, what a waste. And I don't think they work half the time. I think they're just there to make it look like it's a flipper game. So the things they did to try to trick the law is just unbelievable. I mean, policemen aren't that dumb. The law's not that stupid. They knew what they were doing.
Well, yeah.
The only way to get around it was to pay them off, and that's what they did.
Yeah.
So,
but you had to have the outward appearance.
Exactly. Right.
This is absolutely a respectable establishment.
Yeah, well, I think the guy that owned the place that I used to play these things in Denver in the mid-'70s was on the city council.
Oh, there you go.
so, and he never really got any trouble. Nobody came in and gave him any trouble. So I'm sure that something was going on there.
Imagine that.
I didn't care.
Hey, you were able to play.
Yeah, exactly. So,
Phil, we talked, and you had mentioned something about a car as well. Oh,
well, yeah. I have a '65 GTO convertible, one owner. It's been on the cover of the National GTO magazine, and it's in good shape. Original window sticker, original manufacturer's, price, the original bill of sale, and a record book of every time this car's ever had anything done to it, including gasoline, for the last 50 years.
Wow.
And this car is going to be up for sale here, maybe not right away, but, I don't want to really go on about automobiles in a pinball show, but it's kind of interesting. I mean, you just don't see this kind of stuff, and it was my dad's car, so I used to drive this thing in high school, and it survived me. So.
Is there a record of every time you took it out there too?
He may have written that down. I haven't checked. But I was careful. I mean, my dad told me to do something. I was scared of him. I'd do it. He was, people respect their fathers, and I sure respected mine. I do respect them now. And so I listened to him. I took his orders, and every time I put gas in it, I wrote it down. So
there you go.
But it's a nice vehicle. So I was going to take it over to, maybe the Barrett Jackson auction down in Phoenix or Scottsdale at some point, but I'm not sure. It's going to be a while before I do anything. But thanks for bringing it up, Nick.
Yeah, no problem.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember some things sometimes.
Yeah. Me too. Okay, well, good. I guess I'm glad that we had this discussion because, as I told you, the Broncos got slaughtered, and this kind of took my mind off of it today.
Happy to help.
Okay, thanks, Nick.
Thanks, Phil. I appreciate your time.
Okay, very good. Talk to you later.
Okay.
Take care.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.